Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for staying here with us for this wonderful panel. I'm excited about the role of humanity. To speak about that, I'm Lubna Dajani. I will be your host for this next few minutes. I'm sure it'll go a lot faster than I would have wanted to. Um, I'm excited to see all of you here. I think it would be great if I could have you. Okay, now I think we have the full set of panelists on with us. So if I may ask you all to please introduce yourselves, and I would start with you, Atiba, and then and please all forgive me. I'm used to be the one that has my name butchered, and I know I'm going to butcher yours, but you'll have to forgive me. So and help me out here. So I'm hoping that we can make this into a a discussion, and that you can all just unmute and engage. Um, so Atiba, without further ado, please.
Well, Lubna, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And you got my name absolutely correctly. So, yes.
Yay!
Okay. So you're batting 1,000, and that is awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Atiba D'Souza. I run a marketing agency, but really I'm a messaging coach. Okay. And this is such a great conversation that we're going to have today because as the world becomes more digital, understanding communication and how we communicate with each other becomes more and more and more important. And that's what we help people do. That's what we help our clients do, figure out how to communicate with their ideal customers in the best way possible.
I think I'm going to have to call you after this. uh, Thomas, and then if I may ask you to just pass the mic to the next person, unless you want to unmute and I can call on you yourselves. But please, Thomas.
Hi, I'm Thomas R. Wilson, probably the simplest name in the group, but I love it. So I run RNH Creative Advocacy, which is an organization that helps serve underserved communities like mental health, neurodiverse, LGBTQ. Sorry, those letters are always a lot from my mouth. I do storytelling, I do consulting, I run multiple Dungeons and Dragons groups, just about everything at this point. And it is all designed to use storytelling on and off the internet as a means to help people build real life skills and develop and raise their voice so that they can best live their life and best fight for the life they deserve. And then just because I see it right below me, I'm going to go, and I apologize if I butcher your name as well. I'll go to Ganesh because I can see it right under me.
Hello everyone, my name is Ganesh Raju. Thanks Lubna for the panel and privileged to be part of this panel. So I live in Texas, based out of Houston, been at the various capacity for various tech roles, being as an innovative officer, digital transformation leader, AI advisor, do a lot with AI for last 10 years. I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. I have a couple of companies that I run, which focuses on Web3, sustainability, and AI. Again, glad to be here. Nice to meet you all. So I see next Abhilekh.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Ganesh. And yeah, thank you, Lubna, for having me here. This is
Thanks.
Abhilekh Verma. I run a startup which is incubated at Triple IT Hyderabad. So we are into artificial intelligence and machine learning, working very specifically with the student community for jobs and internships. So we match them as well as we do corporate trainings. I also run Azure Developer, Omdena, and ADP list for the local in terms of AI. And as a startup mentor, I've really been fascinated with AI. But then there's also a part of sustainability and the human connection. So that's really an important thing, and I'm doing a research on that as well. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here second time at GatherVerse. So yeah, thank you so much, Lubna, for having me, and looking forward for a great discussion.
I'm grateful to be amongst you guys. Yes, please. But I was going to try and say it, but go ahead and introduce yourself. You need to unmute, please. Majusu, can you unmute? Oh, we lost him. Asya?
Thank you, Lubna. And just so you know, you said that perfectly. Hi, everyone. I'm Asya Bribieska Hedin. I'm a leadership coach and trainer. So I spend most of my time helping people and organizations focus on whatever that roadblock is. They haven't been able to move as quickly as they'd hoped. And I'm really excited about this conversation in particular because we hope that there's this ideal way to interact and engage with AI and use all of this tech and brilliance that's available to us, and that we can set these parameters and rules around it. So I'm excited about this conversation because we haven't even done a great job yet of doing that as human beings, like human to human, in terms of having this standard agreement of how to be with each other. So it's interesting that we're hoping that somehow we'll be able to create a standard agreement about how to be with AI. So I'm really excited to hear from all of you and to just grow this conversation.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Alexander.
What should I say? Good morning or good evening? I am here in Dubai, and it is 10:15 p.m. So
Nice.
yeah. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever way, wherever you are. So I head an e-commerce operation. So it's a grocery startup which we are doing. So in my career, quite a lot of companies which I have worked for. Uh, Predominantly, it has been a startup nature only. Either I have been first in the function or the first employee in the function. So that is how it has worked out. In my job, I do have a lot of interaction with people of different strata, right from helper, labor to a supervisor and manager. So obviously, when a technology comes, I do feel a little bit concerned at times because the whole objective of any technology is to look at reducing manpower and automating things. And when we talk about humanizing the technology or looking at humanity, this becomes very close to my heart. So when this request came, I was very happy that I would be able to participate and also try and learn from such eminent panel things that is happening and how it will contribute, how we can bring change. It may not be a big one, but small within our area, within our group. So every small step just adds to it. So Lubna, thanks, and thanks to the panelist. Looking forward to learn and to contribute what happens in the corporate, because the best part is all of you are founders. I am not founder. I am a business manager. So as a business manager, probably I'll give a different perspective to it. So looking forward to it, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I was hoping that
No,
he'd be back.
yeah.
But hopefully he'll come back with us, and we'll bring him into the conversation. So my background is in systems analysis and design. And I went into I thought I was going to be a doctor. Then I decided to be since I wasn't going to be a doctor anymore, I thought I would do systems to help people with their external systems rather than internal. Because I blame it on the Jetsons and the movie Tron, but I imagine everybody's going to have a computer and everyone is going to be connected and we'll all be freed. And when the mobility came, when the web came, it started to become a reality. And then when mobility, I said the web untethered people and mobility untethered the web. And I imagine now it can free us to get to know each other, one another. But like all powerful things, there's always two sides, and how it's applied is a reflection on what's inside. We earlier several panels talked about ethics, and I work on a lot of ethical standards, IEEE ethical standards. I invite everybody here to check them out because it's a lot of work that's happening on standards. But as Christopher mentioned earlier, how do even people know they exist? So IEEE 7010-2020, which was on the assessment of AI for and autonomous systems on practical considerations for on human happiness and well-being, and most recently, this year, the 7014-2024, which is on emulated empathy. So when people talk about does the machine have emotion, whether it has emotion or it understands, assesses your data points, and then emulates, and when you mimic someone, that's the strongest way of influencing them. And when you combine that with neurotech and nanotech and exoskeletons and quantum compute, so the combined capacity of technology is enormous, and it accelerates our ability to advance across all fields of science and technology. But that power is now sitting with the corporates. And what drives corporates is profitability. So how do we shift the narratives from talking about even how AI is going to do this and that to us, to how do we, in fact, turn AI into the opportunity for it to be a mirror for us to start seeing what is driving us? What do you think we can do, my dear panelists? Because I see you're all leaders, influencers, coaches, and technologists, and even people's managers. We are a representative of we the people, even though amongst us we have founders and leaders. And I think it is time for we the people to step up to the plate and take a seat. So, but how can we shift the emphasis? I say where we place emphasis and how we measure value. Who wants to go first? Unmute. Okay, go ahead. And then Abhilekh, please. Atiba.
Yeah.
I can wait, Atiba. It seems like you had great ideas going through.
Go, Thomas.
You guys decide amongst yourselves.
So I think I love that question. There's a few things I want to know. Like, I think with all technology, there's always a point where there's the conversation of will it replace us? Will it kind of move beyond humanity? I think a lot of times people want us to think that way, want us to think like the way to get technology to be its best is to eventually replace people. But I think one of the things that was really mentioned was your idea of empathy and like emulating empathy and technology. And like I've always been in the belief that humanity is meant to progress, humanity is meant to learn how to do new things. But I think one of the great things that humanity has is the capacity for empathy, is the idea that no matter what we create, we can in some way infuse empathy into it. And I mean, I don't think AI is ever going to fully be to the point where it can match human beings on empathy. But what I hope for is that when we progressively use AI or any technology, we can endorse our own empathy as human beings. And when it starts to reflect us more and more, my hope is that as human beings, we can use that to shine a light on what makes humanity great. More and more. And I, as with the communities I work with, so many, I do sensory-friendly events. I work with the neurodiverse, developmental disability community, many others. My ultimate hope for that reflection is a point when we as a society will have technology that can help us make up for, you know, if someone can't talk, they can talk through the AI or through a program, and then that can write for them. Or if someone's born without a hand, they can write a story if they want to be a writer, whether or not that's automatically generating. But at the same time, my hope is also, like, I work with many people who many people wouldn't. It is a sad fact, but it's not bad on those people. But my hope is that we can progressively utilize technology to serve where we cannot be, but ultimately lift up all of us to a point where we can really thrive. And I think part of that is keeping in mind that we can't exercise humanity from our tools. We always have to be responsible. We always have to take responsibility for our tools, for how we use them. And I think the last bit that I'll say is we always have to emphasize that just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean it can't work in the future. And that doesn't mean we cannot continue to utilize tools as a means to lift up humanity.
Wow.
Mm.
I'm glad I went after you. And I am, because you're absolutely right about empathy, right? And that's so much of what's needed here. And one of the interesting things about technology, one interesting things about life in general, is as we progress and as we get greater, okay, in terms of what we can produce, those of us who actually achieve, because let's face it, we're, no matter where you are in the world, achievement is something we want, okay? Right? Those of us who actually achieve and achieve success that's sustainable, it's because we understood that as things progressed in technology, we went back to principles. And we based everything we do in principles. And so I think as we look at how do we look at the ethics of AI, yes, empathy is one of the things, and one of the principles that we have to make sure we get back to. Creativity is one of the places where I believe that AI is going to allow those of us who are creative to become more creative. January last year, I did my first keynote on AI, and the central point was this: AI is going to allow smart people to get smarter and dumb people to get dumber.
I think you're right about that.
And that's because the smart people are going to understand the principles of how we communicate and what we bring to market and how we actually solve real problems for real people to make their lives better, which when we add value to the market rewards us with money. And I think that is where we need to focus.
Yes, although there's more than just smart and dumb. So, and there's in between
So,
us.
Lubna,
Yeah.
I can add something to what Thomas said. In fact, some of his lines really caught my attention, where he said that, why not to look at AI where it helps humanity in places where we can't go. So somebody doesn't have hand, or somebody can't see, cannot talk.
Does indeed.
So those are the areas which make a big impact.
Yes.
Because if you see as a technology, we are at different stages across the world. So if you look at North America, or say the Middle East, or countries like India or Southeast Asia, you'll find a lot of technological advancement have happened. But there are also countries where this technology haven't reached, or it will take many more years to reach there, because there would be a time lapse between the different continents and the countries that we are looking into for various reasons. So obviously, as AI or as a technology, if it can help to reduce or eliminate problems that we are facing, would probably be a very good point of view, according to me.
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on that. And I know I mentioned earlier the fact that we don't even have agreement around how to be with each other, and how are we going to create agreement around how to leverage AI in a way that is both ethical and maintains humanity. But I think that what really comes top of mind to me is that, sorry, I have my puppy in here with me, is that
that is touch of
like
humanity.
the goal, what is that?
There is touch of humanity. You still have.
Yes, of course. Yeah, he's keeping me company. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of what I spend my time on with clients and training is about boosting the quality of your decision making, right? Because whatever result you want is on the other side of high quality decision making. So of course, whatever we do to work on ourselves, hopefully will help us bring, higher quality thinking to whatever that goal or objective or intention is that we're trying to move forward. And I think that if we think of AI as a way to help us make better decisions by considering things we wouldn't consider ourselves. I see it as being just massive in terms of advancing, in a positive way. The challenge is that, like anything else, right, because the prompts are driven by human beings, the questions we ask are going to be biased. The way we choose to engage with it is going to be biased because it's going to be driven by our own, drama and baggage and insecurities with which we approach everything else in life. So of course that makes me concerned that while a lot of us can use it for high quality decision making, right, and to actually move us towards what we're trying to create on purpose, a lot of us are going to use it simply to almost like double down on our fixed way of seeing things, because you can ask it to give you a case for anything, no matter how negative or backwards or unsupportive it is. So I don't know, I'm always caught between that, because I think it's there to amplify whatever you already bring to it. Oh, I think you're muted, Lubna.
I said I agreed with you, and thank you for telling me. I mean, I'm not sure how I ended up muting myself, but I think, first of all, when you said user bias, I mean, I work on a lot of ethical AI standards and looking at holistically, but the bias, and when I think of bias, there's two major places of where we have bias, and other than shortness and access and reach, is bias in the algorithms, and then bias in the data itself. Even if it's clean and truthful, the data, it's reflective of the existing problems that are in society. So if it's accurate in its reflection, it's going to give us a reflection of what is, not what we want to change to, right? So if you're using it for HR and it's selecting engineers, resumes of engineers, it's based on what it's learned from all the resumes it read. It's going to naturally assume that engineers are males. Why? Because most of the data that it learned on are male. Why? Because society didn't make it accessible for women. So it's going to magnify, extensify that. It's going to just not select a female because it doesn't think that ticks the box. So that's where exactly what you're saying, it further intensifies. So if our intent and what drives us, so beyond ethics, I say, if it's not human rights, and if we don't move to that, then it's going to exacerbate the problem.
Agree. Agree. Yeah. I think it's going to make it easier for us to clutch to our, poorly founded or unfounded ideas and intentions, and always find, it's kind of like an echo chamber, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. Right?
And the thing is, how do we extend the reach and the understanding to the common person? Because we can't all be lawyers, and we can't all be ethicists, and we can't all be developers. And even if we are, how do we shift the pressure from use it? Because today what drives us is how much we can extract, how much more I can take out of your pocket into mine. That's not how I am, unfortunately, but it is how it is. So this is but it was very interesting. But I'd like to hear from now that we finally have you back, Mejusu. How do I say your name? Can we try to hear from you? Oh, no audio still. Sign language.
You can put it in a chat and let Mayu know. Daniel, it's better. Daniel.
Maybe Christopher can help us so we can sort out his, because I'm dying to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, I think we can hear him. Daniel, yeah.
You can hear him? No.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Yeah. So anybody else wants to weigh in on this conversation?
AI right there. Right there would have been a great use of AI.
No kidding.
Seriously. So when we talk about extending into things where humans aren't, we're in a place right now, we don't know what the problem is, but what if we had an AI agent that could actually figure out the problem and then tell them how to fix it?
And when I started talking, I should have unmuted myself. But by the way, on the topic of empathy, a lot of people find that even knowingly that they're talking to a bot, feel that they were better heard and that the chatbot was more empathetic to them, even if they don't get the outcome they want. So really, we have to really rethink. I think when we place the emphasis on the AI itself, we're almost projecting and not taking responsibility for the responsibility that we have, and where do we apply the science? Because there are enormous, wonderful implementations of AI that help people exactly with the use cases you described. But Ganesh, did you have something?
Absolutely, yeah. I want to now, first of all, IEEE. I'm part of IEEE too, same group. So I lead the local chapter as well. So nice to know that. So yeah, we touched upon empathy. Okay, so it looks like
I'm freezing now.
Yeah. So yeah, we touched about ethics too. So yeah, so I think what is happening, how do we solve this problem, right? So we need to think how we can solve it. The majority of the corporations are right now looking at AI, and mainly it is all centralized, right? So Gartner is saying that 80% of all the customer interaction by 2025 will be through AI. But the same Gartner is also saying by only 50% of the corporates will have governance incorporated, AI governance incorporated by 2030. So that means not much effort is being put on. So they are focusing on gaining the productivity, but not looking at having ethics incorporated, right? So I think it is critical and very, very important to think, how do we include ethics when we build AI tools, right? In the beginning, it has to be, the thought has to be, when a startup is starting on an idea, how do we include ethics? How do we include governance into the thought process? Rather than just focusing on the productivity and having the thought as a after effect. Once you get into the problem, how do we fix it? And so recently Google, YouTube, and Facebook went into this issues where they were all having biased information, right? So how do we solve this? So I think we got to think upfront whenever a tool is developed that you focus on ethics.
So the question is, how do we incentivize that?
Yeah.
So Ganesh, I think even the governments are getting warm up to the concept of regulating it, because moreover with a lot of those things that is impacting with fake news and deep fake that is happening around. So governments also are looking into regulating it, because anything that is not regulated, it goes crazy, like people. So there could be a lot of good for a technology. At the same time, it has its own shortcomings, and generally that shortcoming starts coming to the fore more than the good it has, and then everyone starts navigating into a different path. So you're absolutely right. One, the companies have to look at it, and secondly, from the regulatory framework, because come what may, we would have a lot of respect for the regulators coming up with rules and regulations, with of course industry experts input getting into it, so that we have tools that not something which would become disadvantage to the or as a productive support system for the human race.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Alexander. I think regulations, government has to be involved, but typically governments are late to the game most
Yeah.
of the cases.
Well, the good news now, I mean, we have the AI Act, we have the executive order. I mean, governments are trying. I wonder if everybody is, though, incentivized, because
Correct.
there is a lot of power that comes with, I mean, AI is nothing new. It's about, 75, 80 years old as a technology. It just, ChatGPT came around, and then everybody now is aware of generative AI, and it's the simplest form, in fact. But I just want to hear from well, Majitsu, you want to try again?
Daniel.
No problem. Still problem. Can you say something? Say hello? Yeah, I think we need to get, so Abhilekh, did I say it right?
Yeah. Yeah, you said it correct, right? So I think from my perspective, what I've understood when it comes to implementations from government, yes, government is taking a lot of time when it comes to approve things on front like that. But when you talk about Netflix, Amazon Prime, so I've worked on a project where production houses right now are actually in process where you see these actors, Hollywood actors, Bollywood actors, and all, right? So they are trying to make a specific, an approved deep fake, what we say, the right word is not deepfake, rather digital likeness version of the actor, right? So the UK government is actually working on that, where actually different production houses, will get benefit because they can actually get a digital likeness of an actor whom we see on Netflix and Amazon Prime and things like that. It has to be approved on the blockchain per se by that actor, so that their image, the way how they act, the way how they talk, everything gets captured by that digital likeness. So yeah, I mean, everywhere, if you talk about, it's there. I mean, so it's everywhere there. But yeah, I mean, as everyone mentioned, it's not incentivize people. It's not making people generate some kind of income or things like per se. So that's the reason why government is on a back foot right now. But if it can really incentivize, we can find different ways. Maybe talk to policymakers. We can embed that kind of things. And I believe ethical consideration has to be the topmost thing. Since I also run a startup, so it has to be the top priority right now. So yeah, that is something I really agree with, the ethics and human-centric approach right now.
And it needs to be explainable. I mean,
Correct.
when you're driving your self-driving or even your semi-autonomous car, it makes a decision if, in the case of a must-have accident, if you will, and somebody must get hurt, their algorithms will be tuned to whether to protect the drivers, the passengers, or the pedestrians, and in what case. And these are some very, that's not the ChatGPT type of a thing, but this is a really very profound and deep. Whose life do you value, and at what point should the machine decide to take over from you as the driver, and when it's passing judgment on you? So, but let's see if your mic works now, because I would love to have your contribution to this, and I don't want to ignore your back. Maji?
You can try from mobile. I'm on mobile. I'm actually using mobile to connect.
No?
Daniel.
Can you say something? Daniel, that's easy to call him Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel Moses. Daniel is better.
I'm just trying to use his last name, I guess. No? Well, please try on your mobile and come back with us, please.
So Lubna, one interesting part, line you spoke about, that it's 75 years where the artificial intelligence happening with ChatGPT. Actually, it came to fore that people started talking about it. Very interesting. Today, I was attending one logistics summit where the group CEO of Maybach Logistics, he said that from 1940, this entire system started working out, with the PCs coming in, with the IBM machines, and 1989 the internet came. So the search engines and all those were actually building up and giving that input to you. Only after the chat GPT and all, people started becoming like, okay, this is artificial intelligence, but it's already there. Now it's today the AI is somewhat like an intern. but the intern can graduate very fast if you don't put a leash on it. So that is how the entire thing is there. So on one hand we talk about ethics, the other one we talk about empathy. Then how much of the control we need to give AI, that would probably come. You also took a topic about the engineers are male, and so even if female is giving, it considers from that perspective. So like when we ask for any applications, CVs, you'll find that a lot of people just upload some information and the CVs comes out. It's crazy, like, the person is actually totally gets convoluted. A simple guy who is supposed to be data entry operator, he puts, I'm doing some so and so things. The AI says you are a global data entry operator. Now, where a global data entry operator will come, and he feels very happy that I am a global data entry operator. He is actually working in an office in a small workstation, but the system, the AI, so they get happy about it. And that is how, you are actually making them become slave to a technology which you are not understood. So how do you understand? How do you make sure it covers what you intend to have? Would probably be a very interesting part for us to delve into.
I think, Alexander, you touched on two main important points. One is explainability. I think Lubna also touched upon it. I think there will be a major investment going on in the future in explainable AI, predominantly, and also biased data, right? So what is a lot of AI today has already consumed what is public data, what is available, and major LLMs has been trained on it. Now it is getting into a phase that there is a lack of data. So many of the companies are doing something called synthetic data. So they are using AI to produce more data. But again, if you have some bias that you have already trained and now you're using AI to produce more bias data, that is just compounding the problem, right? So with the synthetic data, right? So that has to be resolved. So how do you resolve this is having the governance again, right? So that goes back to the very importance of having governance implemented.
Yes, we keep going back to governance, and even when we talk about not to talk about AI, but digital identities, or so other implementation of digital ledger technologies, and digital identities is a wonderful thing. And self-sovereign, we talk about self-sovereign identity, and that also, it sounds like a great thing, self-sovereignty. But again, it goes back to the governance and where stewardship is, and it could be the very same thing that could be your greatest liberator, can be the invisible leash, which is what I wrote about in the alternate paper some 11 years ago. So the question is, how do we, without creating panic, bring people's level of awareness, understanding? That's why I'm a big fan of also gaming and game mechanics, not just games, but game mechanics, to bring to the level of awareness to people that are so big on using it and very excited, or like they're excited now. I have 500 avatars. I don't, but that are being now very big influencers for me. We're losing. How do we even not lose ourselves? How do we recognize that we are giving away so much of our privacy, which is such a basic human right? It's about as basic. It's not even a human right. It's even animals. Some animals will kill you over their privacy, and that your data is an extension of you at this point, because we no longer live in the physical, in time and space. We live in time and space and cybersphere, and that level of awareness needs to be trickled down to, and I hate to say trickled down, but I mean literally, it has to go to the fuzzy bottom, where it's we the people, again, I call us the fuzzy bottom, versus the very few that are controlling the machine. Because again, it is we I've sat in meetings back in 2017 talking about the right of the machine rights. It was some gentleman stood up and says, shouldn't the machine fight for its rights like women have to? But again, power, and then shift the needle so that, again, we have to incentivize. I mean, if you can tell me of any other way, because anything else we do is just talking, I think. But you correct me, any of you.
Well, and I want to be quick because I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to emphasize high quality education. Education is a real pathway to power. I think we need to find ways in which people actually learn instead of asking them to let us teach them how we want them to be taught. This is a big part of what I do. Like, I find people are far more willing to listen, to be educated, if you actually teach them how they learn versus very archaic systems. But I feel like the first step is just starting education, making sure it's out there, making sure it's accountable, it's honest, it's valuable. I know there will always be people who reject that mindset in their own way, but there is nothing like high quality, capable education out there.
I want to actually add to that. I love what you said, Thomas, about education. I also believe that it might be decades before we have any sort of governance structure or agreed way of being. I think it's really important to spend almost more of our time as individuals focusing on what we control versus what we don't, the things we can influence the most. And so that kind of leaves me with the question, well, how do I want to be in the face of no regulation and no governance around AI? Right? Because the decision is going to be mine. It's going to be mine probably again for decades for the most part. And even when there's regulation about it, there's going to be some gray space where I'm still going to be able to manipulate it the way that I want. So how do I, as an individual, right? How do you as an individual want to be in a world of no regulation? If it wasn't against the rules to, run somebody down with your car, would you want to? Right? If it wasn't against the rules to shoot somebody, would you want to? Right? So how do we need to be in the face of no regulation and no governance? And I know this is what ethics comes down to, but that's what we control, right? Given all of the great ideas in this conversation, that's kind of what it comes down to. And hopefully, as you said, Lubna, trickling it down and expanding it out so that more people are asking themselves on purpose, like, how do I want to be in the face of no controls?
We're actually literally, I think, out of time, but so I'm going to ask each of you to take 30 seconds to a minute, and just give us your what your final remark, what you think would be an actionable thing for us to do, because I really want to action the blah blah. I can tell you that's why I've started the Living Labs Alliance, which is about an alliance where you come together in co-creation, so we compete to complete each other's efforts to affect the change that we seek and create the pressure that we need to create so that those who have the power can move the needle on fiduciary responsibility of companies. So I will hand it over to you, Abby, and move on next to Alexander and around the.
Sure. So I think as a concluding thing, what I would really like to highlight, I mean, because I also teach at colleges to MBA students. So one of the key things is what I really want to focus is like technology should not be a substitute. Rather, it should be a partner in creativity. Right? We should use it as a benefit rather than try to just use it for the sake of using it. Because when you go to LinkedIn, when you go to social media, everybody using aggressively Gen AI tools, right? So it should be more about being a partner in creativity. It should help us to make things more more crystallized, more summarized. Because I believe now creativity is really going away with Gen AI tools, and it's actually replacing a lot of folks, especially the young Gen Zs I see right now. They've been depending fully on the technological tools, but their creativity is just going out. So by focusing on these collaborative tools, their personalized experience and their technologies, I believe they can promote understanding and communications. And we can obviously talk about innovation there, because that will come from their inherent human qualities, which they already have. right? So as a conclusion, I would really want everyone to think technology more like a partner rather than a substituting.
Thank you for that.
So
Genuinely.
I can take it forward from what you said.
Yeah.
For us, AI should be another tool in the progress, a technological tool in a progress of human from time immemorial. So how do we take it forward? How do we make sure our creativity is not lost? So rather than getting stagnant by thinking that somebody is going to be my supportive, it is just a crutch. It should not be a crutches for us to walk. We walk on our own, using this as a tool in the long list of advancements that have happened and built a human race, not to destroy or to take somebody's livelihood from their hand, but rather to encompass and bring everyone to those levels which a human being should be at. So thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Atib?
Hi. So one fantastic panel. Thank you for having me and all of you guys. You guys are genius. So I really appreciate being here. And creativity, yes, it's a tool. Yes. And that's one of the things that we have to recognize. It's a tool. Just like the hammer was a tool.
Exactly.
And a hammer is great when it meets a nail. And it's horrible in a lot of other circumstances and cases, right? And so going back to where I started when it said smart people are going to get smarter. Smart people are going to understand how to be creative. They're going to ask better questions.
Right.
Okay, we talked about bias. Smart people are going to understand I have bias. The system has bias. And we're going to be able to start to say, okay, how do we deal with our own biases as we're dealing with this? Because the only thing that we've talked about here in reality is reality. Think about it. Every challenge that we've said that AI is going to bring up is really just amplifying what's already there.
Correct. Indeed.
And so governance, good, humanity, better. So Asya, to your point, it's about us individually. The responsibility is on us individually to get back to those basic things, those basic principles of being human and using the tool as a tool.
Thank you. We do need to remember that these days for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else wants to say?
I'll go next. Yeah, so I agree to all the points. Amazing. Thanks for allowing me to be part of the panel. So I think from my standpoint, 5G and whatever new technology is coming up next, and even technologies like Starlink, and which is going to give access for more people. They're saying like 5 billion people out of 8 billion will have access to internet by next year. That is massive. So people will get more and more access. That means there will be more and more access to AI as well, right? So with autonomous cars coming, with more people having more access to cell phones, more robots coming, that means more and more data is going to be generated. And when AI is using this data, we spoke about ethics, bias, and all of that. We have to be very, very careful. Majority of the LLMs are looking at generic way of giving predictions, not going deep, right? So that's a problem. So we got to look at how to make sure that gets resolved. And obviously, we touched upon having AI as an augmentation for humanity, right? So that is very important. We need to focus on governance is important. For all this to happen, I think it is critical to have explainability. So we need to focus on how AI is making these predictions, what data it is using, why it's making these predictions. So it has to be explainable, and that explainability should be open source so that it is not centralized black box and only the companies, top companies like Facebook, Google, and OpenAI have access, rather than if it supports open source. That's why I like Llama as a language. So people know what is inside it. It's not a black box anymore. So that's what I think.
Thank you
from my
so much.
point of
Excellent point you make.
And just what I'll add really quickly for the sake of time, I don't want to keep anyone from talking. I would just say, going off of the point, there have been so many great points, so many even people kept me on my toes, keeping me moving, keeping me thinking. What I will say really quickly, so for the sake of time, value your right to education, value your right to ask questions, just value yourself and the people around you. Humanity does best when we work together, when we strive for the right things that benefit us, things that keep us safe. And the last thing I'll just say is, just because someone doesn't appear to have the right answer doesn't mean it's their fault. There's so many factors in this world that can stop a person from thinking through the right thing the way you want them to. And I think when we are able to practice that mindset towards ourselves and others, we can further practice empathy, and we can further use the tools that we have to utilize empathy better.
Empathy, and I'll just add compassion, because empathy without compassion can be quite dangerous.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how much I want to thank all of you. I'll just throw one more thing. Next week, I'll be presenting a paper at the International Humanitarian Technology Conference on human rights driving human-machine teaming. So as we move into a more of this human and machine coexistence, how can we ensure that human rights are even driving the ethics? Because ethics are also contextual, and whose ethics, I say sometimes, are we talking about? Because what you think is ethical and what I think is ethical may be different. But at least the international human rights is something we've agreed upon. Again, thank you all. I really would love to have an opportunity. Please connect with us. I love to connect with all of you, and let's continue this conversation and then action it to in practice on something that we can bring back to the next GatherVerse and say, look what we've done since the last time we've been here. So with that, I thank you all so deeply. Thank you, GatherVerse, for this gather. I'm delighted to have met all of you. I love your energy. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Bless you. Thank you.